Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tune In with Katrina. Today is December 8th, and this week's energy is really a continuation of what we have been experiencing so much lately, so much this year. This year is the year of the snake, it is the year of shedding, and and there are so many parts that are being disrupted, so many elements of our lives, whether personally, collectively, all over the place, the structures that are in place, the things that we have come to rely on, have come to know as this is just how things go, this is how things are, they're just crumbling right and left. They are being shaken up. And it's happening, if we can keep remembering this, it's happening, you know, not to minimize at all the pain and the trauma that's being caused, and so much fallout that is that is deeply real for so many. That's all true. But in order for something new to be created, for something better to be cultivated, there has to be disruption. And so in this disruption, you know, wherever we are with it, however it's impacting our lives, either on that individual level or in the collective, in the ways that we are personally tapped in and feeling it, because all of us have kind of a different connection with different elements, things that bring us more heartache than others, depending on the things that pull at our heartstrings. And and it can be really overwhelming when we are sensitive, very feeling people, very tapped into energetics, to experience the overwhelm of all that's going on, of all the pain that is there. And and so we hold that as true, we honor that, and we do what we can, right? But we also can see the bigger picture and hold the bigger picture and know that in this pain, in this disruption, there's also an opportunity being created for something new to be cultivated. And so how can I hold the pain, honor, what's happening on all these different levels and all these different aspects of life? How can I help and be of assistance where I can? And how can I be a part of cultivating something new that is better for all? And and so one of the things that we're really being as we're sitting in this disruption, however that is appearing for us, for some of us it's more emotional, for some of us it's physical, for some of us, it can look so many different ways, right? But wherever you feel like you're kind of like be stuck between this like rock and a hard place, there is an invitation, especially this week. And this week is reminding us to the lean into the magic that's available, to really tap into some of the divine feminine um energies, the ways that we can lean into our divine feminine energy. And we've been playing with this more and more, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, which I talked about last week, which is that the divine feminine is we are needing to make space for that energy to come into alignment with the divine masculine, to rise up and hold the matriarchy with the patriarchy, right? And to do this in a way where there's harmony, where there isn't power over, but power with, and this equalizing of sorts that happens with the masculine and the feminine energy. And those are energies that sit within each of us. So ways that you can walk through this week with that holding both and of what these disruptions might feel like in your life, this kind of like you know, in the moment, day to day, moving with it, and this broader perspective to pull back and um just see a bigger picture, see through a broader lens. And 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 so one of the invitations, I'm going to go through three that can be really supportive um this week and all the time, right? But especially right now, is to, a lot of times when we're sitting in something that's uncomfortable, when we're stuck in that between the rock and the hard place, it is really easy to want to figure it out, to want to think our way into a solution. And one of the best things we can do is to open ourselves to what is a new way I can see this? What's a perspective shift? What is supposed to come through in this? What am I supposed to know about this? Getting really curious and then creating the space for that curiosity um, to bring us whatever it is we're meant to know. And that doesn't happen necessarily when we ask for it. So I have a really cool example in my inner circle. We have a meditation a couple times a month together, and then we have discussion and an intuitive discussion following it. And this last time, one of the women after the meditation said, nothing really came to me. And so I'm going to just like sit with it. And that's one of the things that we've really learned to offer ourselves, which is just time to sit with it. Just because something didn't come through in the meditation doesn't mean it like didn't work, or that something's wrong, or that there's nothing there for me or for her. Like it's just that it needs maybe some more space. And she actually came back then a few days later and she said, I just kept connecting with it and sitting with it, um, open to like whatever's meant to come through, without that forcing, without needing it to happen in the in the indicated timing, right, of like the meditation conversation circle. And sure enough, she had a moment where it just came through to her. And and she said, oh, I finally, like, I got the thing that I was wanting, not, it wasn't a specific outcome. It was just that kind of curiosity she was holding in the meditation we had done in the inner circle. There was something more that came to her, more information that came to her at a later time. And so when we are opening ourselves to these curiosities and we're saying, wow, this is really uncomfortable. What am I supposed to know here? What am I supposed to um, get from this? What is there? Is there something to know? How can I see this in a different way? What am I meant to do with this? Right? Like, to then let that question just sit and brew in time and move with it. Maybe you kind of like presence it now and then as you move through your day, as you move into the next day and the next, and then notice that it arrives when it's meant to. And you can't miss it. You won't miss it. So this is just, it's just operating a little differently than we are used to. We're used to needing to have the answers in the specific time we're supposed to have them, right? When I'm taking the test, when the teacher calls on me, when I get up to like say something, or when I'm having a conversation in the middle of it, right? But sometimes I've given myself so much grace around that to say, even if a friend like wants to converse about something really important with me, and as they're talking, nothing feels like it's really coming through as like an important response. I've learned to just give that time and say, interesting. Like, I'm going to sit with that. And then oftentimes, if a response is needed from me, it comes through at a later time. And I trust that it will come through when it's meant to. So, opening up some spaciousness around the answers, around the knowing that, that we are, that we are, calling in. And then another really feminine energy aspect to lean into is support in community. There is so much gold in knowing we don't have to do it all on our own. And we live in a culture that is very much celebrates being independent. But the feminine energy likes to be woven together with others and be held and be nurtured and be supported, and to feel, we can feel that in just like the support of the earth. And and so the more we can nourish the community, nourish our ability to receive, our ability um, to request support when needed. I was just discussing this with a friend of mine who was sharing about her recent journey with cancer. And she was talking about how she has always been a very independent person, and that this has given her, and always the giver, always doing what she can for community, which is a beautiful thing. But this required her to ask for support and to receive. And there's this really special thing that happens that we were talking about, which is that when she asks for support, when any of us ask for support, when any of us are willing to receive, we are opening the door for others to do the same. And we are actually creating more opportunity for ourselves to give. Because when I ask for support, I've just given every single person that I asked for support from permission to ask support from me when they need it. And so and then we create this web that holds us all, this network that we can all relax into without feeling like we have to all do it each our own. And then finally, the last thing I want to talk about is leaving space for the unknown. Slightly different than creating that spaciousness for what the knowing that's meant to come through. What I mean by leaving space for the unknown is to let yourself be surprised by the ways support can show up. Let yourself be surprised by the way the answers can come through, by the way the knowing can take shape within you. Another example, in our inner circle, somebody was talking about how, imagery just doesn't come to them. They keep waiting for like images to come through. And the reality is that, like, not everybody sees images. Some people, when they're tapping into that mystery, into the void, into the when they're opening themselves up for messages, intuitive knowing, whatever it is to come through, they might feel it come through as like a gut sense. They might see it through imagery. They may hear words. They may it might come through as like a sound or a color, that just suddenly makes sense. And so we can we can it's really important that we stay open to how we're receiving these things, and trust what's coming through, that you aren't just making it up, that it isn't just a random weird feeling that you're having, that learn to discern between what feels true and what doesn't. And that just comes with practice. So leaving space for the unknown. And I'll tell a quick story to wrap up here. When I was heading into my first big retreat that I was hosting, I went to see, she's like a shaman, body worker, physical therapist. And I wasn't really seeing her for anything to do with a retreat. It was something physically I had going on. I was going for a session, and at some point she said, "Oh, you have a retreat coming up." And she said, um, "The mermaids really want to be a part of your retreat." And at first I was like, "Oh, are there, um, is there like a group called the mermaids, or what's the service the mermaids offer?" Like I was thinking about it more in terms of reality. And then she let me know it was no, mermaids, like um this mythical being that sits, many think of these beings as sitting in like another dimension alongside ours. And so I said, "Okay, great," kind of like, fine, I'll roll with that. And then sure enough, when I got to this place on the ocean, and I ended up having a Reiki session there, and with a friend of mine who lives there, and she was doing work on me, and I felt the mermaids come, and I felt their energy, and I felt their support. And I could have written that off, especially the left part of my brain could have said, "You're insane, you're just making this up." But what's the harm in feeling their hot pink energy, in feeling the joy and the play that they wanted to bring into the retreat? And so I just let it happen. I let that come through. I let that land in my body. I brought that energy into the circle with me, and it did facilitate an energy of playfulness. And um so, who's to say if I made it all up, or if it was, um or if, if there are real, if mermaids are a real thing sitting in that other dimension. I mean, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it felt true to me, and I let it come through. And so, and it was of benefit. So that was a little bit of a fantastical, like, maybe, it doesn't have to be like mermaids, right? And beings in other dimensions, but it can be so many different things. It can, though, just be as simple as, this is the next right thing to do. This is the next step to take, without needing to see the bigger picture. This is just the next thing that feels right to do in this next moment. And that is allowing space for the unknown to come through when we haven't planned it out 30 steps in advance, or when maybe we do because we're a planner and that's helpful, but maybe we aren't so attached to each of those steps that we allow the unknown that wants to come through space to integrate, and room to pivot with that unknown that we're inviting through. So that is the tune in for this week. Drop any comments. You have anything that comes to you to share with everybody, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear what this sparks for you, because oftentimes it's just a continuation, of each of our intuitions, and we'll weave it all together for this web of support that's landing here on this page. So thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.